In this video, I want to do an update on the QuickrStuff Mach 2 bike rack to follow up my first two reviews. So I did an initial one when I got the rack. I did a follow-up review after using the rack for a while. And in this one, I want to cover a couple things that I forgot to mention in those first two videos and also answer some questions that I've received about the rack. I'm going to actually start off with one of the things that I mentioned in the last video that I did, so my review of using the rack for a while. And that is how this rack can be difficult to get up and down, and it can be especially difficult at times, not all the time, to pull out this lever. So this is the lever that you have to pull out to raise the rack up or down. And there are times, like I said, that it can be really challenging to pull this out, and it takes some effort. And I actually did grease, and I'll show you in a minute. I did put some grease on the metal to try to make it easier. But what you have to do really is just kind of shake the rack up and down as you pull this out, and then it's okay. But even shaking it up and down, there are a few times where it was just really challenging. Now, there are times I walk over to the rack and pull this out and it's no big deal, but that is honestly the only negative about the rack. Like I mentioned, I did put a little bit of grease in these little grooves where this bar locks into place to make the lever easier to pull out. I would say it helped a little bit. I may try a lighter type lube, so like some spray lube, to see if that works. But the grease, I would say, helped slightly. Similar to that, with one tray on, it can also take some effort to raise the rack up. So I've already got the lever out, and now it's time to raise the rack. So sometimes you got to pull pretty hard. Now that's because with only one tray on, you don't have as much leverage, right? So you're having to use some more strength. It is more difficult than any rack that I've used to get up and down. But you know, when you add more trays, 2 and especially 3 or 4, that's not an issue because of the leverage. And even pulling it back down, it's not really a one-handed operation. So if you have a bike in your hand and you want to like lower the rack, it really takes 2 hands to, you know, one lifts up on the lever and the other one drops it down. So I've got the negatives out of the way. Now let me just talk about some other things about the rack. I mentioned in the last video that I did that the levers on one of my trays, the one that I use all the time, can be hard to pull up. Now, literally, like right after I shot that video, I realized that all you have to do, instead of lifting straight up, is to just pull out a little bit, and then it's easy. Like, it's really easy. Now, my other trays don't have that problem. I can just lift up on the lever, and it's fine. But like I said, all you have to do is pull out. So that I mentioned as a negative in my last video. Now it's not, because like I said, literally like right after I shot the video, I realized that. So just pull out and this thing moves just fine. And that's how you raise the tray. Now, speaking of raising the tray, someone made a comment that the metal on metal scraping sound that you get can be kind of annoying. Honestly, for me, it's not. To me, it's the sound of durability. Like, this thing's all metal. So does that scraping noise bother me? It doesn't. This is the noise I'm talking about. So when it's time to raise up a tray, not a big deal. Something else that I want to mention that I did not say in my other videos is the fact that this rack has a design where the lever locks into place without using teeth. So if you look at the one-up rack, and I think even the older QuickrStuff model, there are teeth that lock the lever into place. This uses friction. And so when it's time to raise up the tray, hold the lever down, and then to lock it, you just let go. And one nice thing about having, well, 2 nice things about not having teeth. One is it's going to be more durable. So the teeth, I think, can wear out over time. At least that's what QuickrStuff says on their website, and it makes sense to me. The other thing is it's infinitely adjustable. So with the teeth, you probably have just some little tiny gaps in between, whereas this friction design is totally infinitely adjustable. Now, I do want to say that it is very, very secure. So this is obviously how you lock the bike onto the vehicle, and I'll put a bike on here in a minute. But when it's locked into place, like, this thing is super secure. So again, I'll show you when I put the bike on that when the arm is resting against the tire, it does not go anywhere. And I've been using this rack a lot, and I've never had a problem with this coming loose. It's a really good design. Someone asked if this lever was hard to reach when you added more trays, and I realized I forgot to mention that that's one of the cool things about this design is that when you add other trays, they connect onto this lever, and so you only have to pull the lever from the outermost tray. So I'm going to put another tray on to show you what I'm talking about. So I'll just put on one tray, and I've already showed how to do this in the other videos, but it's so quick. But when I'm doing this, what's going to happen is there's a little notch here in this lever arm, and so when I put the other tray on, that's going to connect on to the lever, and that allows, like I said, you to pull the lever out. So like I showed in the other videos, you just lock these on and that's secure. So now if I want to raise the rack, I just pull the lever from the outermost tray. And like I mentioned earlier, now I have more leverage on this rack, so it's a lot easier to move up and down as opposed to just having one tray. And I did mention this in another video, but I typically will just use one tray most of the time, and then for weekend adventures or if I'm riding with someone else, I'll put the other tray on. But yeah, that's a really cool feature that you can just add the tray and just grab the outermost lever. I'm going to put a bike on and show you one last thing that you have to be aware of when you put bikes on the rack, and when you take them off for that matter. When you're putting a bike on the rack and when you're taking one off, you just have to be aware of the fact that your rear derailleur cage, if the derailleur is in a smaller cog and it's sticking out, it can touch the arm. So you can see here that the rear derailleur is kind of close to this arm in the back. And so especially when you take the bike off, you have to be careful, because what I do is I undo the front and then I slide the bike backwards a little bit on the tray to undo the rear one. Okay, so the way that I remove a bike is I push on the front arm, undo the lever, and then just hold the bike with my hand. Sometimes it'll stay with that rear one attached, sometimes it won't. But when I do the rear one, I typically just lift up the lever and I push the arm back with my finger while I'm holding the rear tire. And again, you just want to make sure the rear derailleur doesn't really come in contact too hard with this. I mean, if it does, it's not a big deal. You just don't want to do it too hard to bend your derailleur cage. Not that I've ever done that, but I do have a few marks on this arm that shows that I did touch it with the rear derailleur, but pretty minor, but I just wanted to mention that. One last thing that I'll mention about the rack, again, based on comments that I've gotten, and that is the fact that this rack copies the one-up rack. Well, it's actually the same inventor. So the same person that invented the one-up design also invented this one. So if he stole it, I guess he stole it from himself. So again, just wanted to mention that because I've gotten actually quite a few comments about that. Now the one-up is still a great rack. I have so many friends that have the one-up rack, and honestly, if it weren't for this one, it's probably the rack that I would use. Now, I do want to say that I'm about to test a rack from another company, the same design. That's coming up. I won't tell you which one it is, but I'm excited about that. But again, like I said, the one-up is a really great rack. The thing that sets this one apart is the tools free. No tools needed to take it on and off the vehicle, and of course to add or remove trays. So that is my quick follow-up video on the QuickrStuff Mach 2 bike rack. I'll probably do one last video after a long-term use, unless there's just something else that I feel like I need to report on this rack. As always, questions or comments that you have, drop those below. Thanks for watching.